Hi, I'm Doris Epstein, and this is MENSCHlife TV. I've got a treat for you today. An ethnomusicologist who does outstanding work in Ladino Spanish particularly, and other forms of music. You're going to meet Dr. Judith Cohen and hear some of the beautiful music that she performs, and academically what she says about Ladino and what she says about other forms of music. And a remarkable young woman, Jackie Silver, who a few months ago had an experience that turned her life around, and now she's helping other people turn their lives around. Judith, welcome.
Hello, Doris.
What are we looking at here?
This is a concert that I did a couple of years ago in Spain, in Madrid. So you see, well, you see me, you see my daughter Tamar, whom I think you remember from when she was much smaller. She sings with me, and as well two musicians that work with us all the time in Spain. On my left you see Wafir Sheikh, and on Tamar's right you see Bill Cooley.
So what you're performing here?
This was a concert of mostly Sephardic and also related music, music from the Balkans, medieval music, that we did for a small place in Madrid called Espacio Ronda.
All right, let's hear it. Max, can you run it? That's Ladino.
It's being called Ladino these days. Yeah, it's Ladino. It's a wedding song from the Jews of Bulgaria.
The Jews of Bulgaria originated in Spain?
There are Ashkenazi Jews in Bulgaria as well, but the Sephardic community in the Balkans originally was from Spain.
Yeah. Tell us more about Sephardic music. Tell us more about Ladino in particular, the language, the culture, and is it still alive today?
Well, let's see. I think you've given me enough questions for a couple of hours here. Let's see if we can condense it. Technically, Ladino actually isn't a spoken language. It's a translation word for word from Hebrew. So, for example, when we had Passover just now, and we said this night, halayla hazeh, that's translated into Ladino directly, la noche la esta, in the Haggadah. So it's as if you were to say the night, the this. And the idea was to make sure there was no mistake, and especially women who at the time didn't usually study Hebrew, with some exceptions, to make sure that everything was correct. But when you spoke, you would never say the night, the this. You would say esta noche, as you do in standard Spanish.
So is it Spanish or is it Hebrew?
It's Spanish, but Ladino is technically the translation directly from Hebrew to Old Spanish. But it's come to be used to refer to all the ways that Sephardic Jews use it in daily life. So, for example, if you go to where this song is from, to the Bulgarian-Turkish border area, they might say Judezmo or Judeo, which is exactly the same as saying Yiddish, the language of the Jews, Judeo, Judezmo. They might say Español. They might say Español Nuestro, which is our Spanish, to distinguish it from modern Spanish. And these days, they might even just say Ladino. And so scholars coined the term Judeo-Spanish with a hyphen, Judeo-Español, to refer to all of these together. It's like an umbrella term. So it refers to Old Ladino, translated from Hebrew directly. It refers to spoken, Judezmo, Judeo. And in Morocco, they use a totally different term. They say Haketia.
Which means what?
Well, we're not really sure where the word is from. It might be from Isaquito, little Isaac. It might be from an Arabic word for conversation. But the spoken Ladino in Morocco is called Hakitia. But these days, people just tend to say Ladino to encompass all of it.
You work in French. You work in French Canadian and Yiddish, Portuguese, Balkan, and Ladino as well. But Ladino is your specialty, and that's what you're noted for.
Yeah, I guess I'm mostly known for my work in Sephardic music.
Can you give us a sample? What's the difference between these two drums, for instance?
Okay, well, they're both
a tambourine, actually.
They're both frame drums. You know, the generic term we use in ethnomusicology is frame drum, just any drum that's got a frame and skin stretched over it. So this is a round frame drum, and it's a round frame drum with jingles. You can have them without.
Would you call it a tambourine?
Well, you could, but it's easier usually just to say frame drum and then keep defining it. And this is a double skin drum. You can see this one only has one skin, which is the norm. But this is a family of drums that actually has two skins, and they're sewn together. I don't know if you can see it, but they're sewn together traditionally with entrail. It's not thread, it's sheep's
Let's hear
entrail.
the difference in the sound. And this?
But they're also going to sound different if they're larger or smaller, or what the skin is made of, you know, if it's fish skin, which is the best, or sheep or goat.
The best way we can experience this is if you sing with it. Will you do that for our next segment? Sure. Stay with us. Dr. Judith Cohen, and we're about to hear a sample.
So this one is a wedding song from Morocco. We opened with one from Bulgaria, and this is one from northern Morocco. And it says, they got me ready, it's a bride speaking. And she says, they got me ready for the bed, and they checked to see if I was untouched, to put it politely. Y así se me arrimó y hacia la cama, y así se me arrimó y hacia la cama. A ver las almohadas si eran de lana, a ver a nuestra novia si era galana, y así se me arrimó y hacia la cama.
And this is the Portuguese drum.
Right. Well, now it's a Portuguese drum, but it was used actually in the Middle Ages before the expulsion from Spain. The Jews and the Muslims and the Christian women all played it. We have all kinds of documentation of all three of them. And in fact, there are Haggadot from the 14th century from Barcelona that show Miriam and her women after the crossing of the Red Sea playing this square drum. And then after the expulsion from Spain and Portugal, it seems to have disappeared from Sephardic life, but it stays in certain areas of Spain and Portugal. So right around where a lot of the so-called Moranos live, the hidden Jews of Portugal, this drum is played.
Is that a particular area?
There are several areas, actually really all over the country, but the area best known is a town called Belmonte. And right around that area, which is called Beira Baixa, and quite near the Spanish border. It's not one of, they don't really have a specific song repertoire, not really, a couple of exceptions, but this is a song they all know.
Well, let's hear.
So... Oh, que lindos olhos tem a padeirinha. Oh, que lindos olhos tem a padeirinha. São-me empregados andar a farinha. São-me empregados andar a farinha.
What does it mean?
Well, that's just a fun song about the baker's daughter who's so pretty.
Farina. I heard farina.
Baker's daughter who's so pretty she shouldn't be wasting her time baking bread.
They say the root of flamenco is Jewish.
They say a lot of things, but actually
Is that correct?
Not as far as any...
A combination of Arab and Gypsy and
Well,
Jewish.
you know, it's very complicated because, first of all, flamenco is not that old. Flamenco is a couple of hundred years old, which is not old in the scheme of things. So when the so-called gypsies, when the gitanos arrived in what became called Spain afterwards, right? What came to be called Spain in the mid to late 15th century. The Jews only had a few decades left in the country before they were expelled. And the Jews by then weren't even living in the south. They weren't living in Andalusia anymore. They were living in the center and north of Spain for the most part. And we don't know how much the gypsies who had just come in, the gitanos who had just come in, we don't know how much they did or didn't have to do with the Jews who were there. My guess is not much, because frankly the Jews were already having enough problems as it was. And if they associated with these newcomers who had an undeservedly bad reputation, they didn't deserve a bad rep, but they got a bad rep for various reasons, they probably would have been in more trouble. So my guess is they probably didn't have very much to do with them. What people get confused about is, first of all, Sephardic songs from today are not that old. Some of the words are very old. So in many cases we have narrative ballads whose words go back to before the expulsion, but not the tunes. Or we have wedding songs whose words go back to maybe the Renaissance, but not the tunes. But most of the songs people hear, most of the Sephardic songs people hear today, the vast majority are new. When I say new, I'm a medievalist. About 100 years, 120 years, maybe 130 years. But a lot of them were, say, popular songs from Spain from the 1890s that reached Sephardic communities in Istanbul and Izmir and Salonika through touring singers from Spain, through the new phonograph. We've had, recording industry in Istanbul since 1906, including Sephardic singers who recorded as early as 1906. They adapted a lot of these popular songs. They took songs from Greek, Turkish, Balkan culture.
Could you give us a little example, Judy?
Well, even, for example, that famous song, Adio Querida, which I don't sing, but everyone else does. Adio, adio querida, no quiero la vida, me la mariates tú. There's a controversy where the Sephardim say that the great composer Verdi took it from the Sephardim, and probably it's the other way around. The Sephardim took it from a Verdi composition, is much more likely historically. But there's a lot of songs like that. There are songs based on Maurice Chevalier's songs, for example, on songs by the French composer and singer Maurice Chevalier. Sure.
Such as what?
For example, you'll get Yo quiero mujer que sea bien vestida, que tenga sex appeal y que sea de familia, que sea de salón y buena educación y jugar violón, el piano, que sepa bien tocar como flama en la cama. Do you recognize that?
Not really. And I'm wondering what a French
de tout
actor
petit
has to do
péton,
with
Valentine, Valentine.
Ah, that one I recognize.
Because everyone listened. French culture was very important in Sephardic culture. So the Jews of northern Morocco were just over the Strait of Gibraltar from Spain. They picked up Spanish radio. They heard Spanish music all the time. There were Spaniards living there. For the Jews of the Eastern Mediterranean, the old Ottoman lands, French culture was very, very important. And they heard it all the time.
And they translated into
And they
Spanish?
translated Greek songs into Spanish. They
Such
translated...
as what? Give us an example.
Well, one of the most famous songs, for example, that you hear is Üsküdar'a giderken, which is Turkish, actually. It also became Greek. So they'll take the Üsküdar'a giderken aldı da bir yağmur. Üsküdar'a giderken aldı da bir yağmur. And they'll translate it to Selanik entero yo lo camini, como ti mi linda dama enda non topi. Or you'll hear a song like, this is in 7, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Yavuz geliyor Yavuz da deniziyor ayara, kız ben seni alacağım da başına vura vura. Translated into Ladino, la comida la mañana, la tarde la traigo atrás, que lo sepa la mi madre que yo quiero desposar. That kind of thing.
Okay, more. Stay with us. We have to go for a break, and we'll hear more. You say there's a difference between flamenco and Sephardic music that usually gets blurred.
Yeah. Well, people have this confusion. They think flamenco is medieval and they think Sephardic is medieval, and so they must have the same roots. Actually, we have no music written down from the Sephardim at that time, so we don't even know what their music was. Even when we know what the words were, we don't know what the music was. And from that early, we don't have the words either. And we don't have flamenco written down either. So we actually don't know anything at all. What they do share, along with a lot of Middle Eastern and North African music, is a lot of musical traits that you find all over the Mediterranean. So you have highly ornamented vocals. You have monophonic singing. That means it's not harmonized. It's one melody at a time as opposed to harmonized. Usually no instruments or one instrument, an oud, a string instrument. So there's a lot of things that you'll find right from southern Spain and northern Morocco, right through the Mediterranean, you know, through Tunisia, through Greece, through Egypt, right to Israel, that are shared characteristics that whether you're Jewish or you're Christian or you're a Muslim or you're a Gypsy, Roma, you're going to find.
Is there a Jewish strain that runs through?
Not really. I wouldn't say so.
Or rather, it's reflective of the different regions.
There are aspects that are reflective that run through the whole Mediterranean that contain these characteristics. I think it's far more likely historically that flamenco is influenced by the Muslims who were in Spain over a century longer than the Jews and who did live in the same areas in the south.
There's a ballad that you want to sing for us.
Well, I could sing any number. When I say ballad, I mean narrative ballad, like in English, the child ballads. I don't mean ballad in the pop sense of a slow song. So these are songs that a lot of Sephardic women especially the women, still sing, but the melodies have changed over the years. So you take a ballad like Landarico, the story of the adulterous queen that goes back to Merovingian times. It's not a Jewish story. And it's died out pretty much in Spain and Portugal, almost completely. But you can still find it. So the Jewish women in Morocco might sing it like this. Levantóse el rey a cazar un lunes por la mañana y fue a ver a la reina por ver cómo alboreaba. And traditionally they'll do something while they're doing it with their hands. They won't sit idle. They'll embroider, they'll shell peas, they'll rock the baby. You know? And then her counterpart over in Turkey might sing exactly the same words and the same story with a tune like this. Y el rey que mucho madruga, ande la reina se iba, ande la reina se iba.
And is there a change anywhere else?
What do you mean?
In the melody, in the...
Well, the melody changes, the musical style changes, some details of the story change, but the basic story stays the same. And we don't know what tune it was sung with 500 years ago. We have no idea.
It evolved.
They didn't write it down. Well, it's not that it evolved. They didn't write it down. So it's a different tune in Turkey. It's a different tune in Greece. It's a different tune in once in Morocco. The story stays the same, yeah.
You are involved with Marrano Jews in Portugal.
As an ethnomusicologist, I do a lot of research on the role of music in their lives and how they develop a musical life, both before when they had to live in secret and now when they live openly. And so I go there a lot, and I do a lot of what's called field work with them. I interview them, I stay with them. I've been going since the mid-90s, actually.
So how many, roughly how many are there that we're talking about?
The ones who still live in secret, we can't count. They're all over Portugal.
They're still living in secret?
Many of them, yes. It's built into the way they live. It's just part of their religion, really. And the ones who have come out and who live openly as Jews, it's hard to say, but in the town of Belmonte that most people have heard about, there's probably about 150, and another few hundred scattered here and there. But there's more all the time because more and more of them are coming out and being proud of being Jewish and wanting to find their place in the community again.
And this goes back to the Inquisition?
The Inquisition came to Portugal later than to Spain. It didn't come till the 4th decade of the 16th century. So they had a few decades to consolidate how they lived as secret Jews before they were actually persecuted. And once they were persecuted, it was just as rough, if not even rougher, as it was in Spain. But it started much later, and so they were given that time, as I said, to work out a system to consolidate how to live as secret Jews.
And culturally, is there music that manifests their experiences?
They don't have a different musical tradition, because that was my original question, and I think it would have been just too dangerous to have music that was different from other people's music. So they have prayers. They have reams and reams and reams of recited prayers in Portuguese, reams, that the women recite very, very quietly. So you might walk into a house and not even hear them in the kitchen. It sounds as if they're gossiping while they prepare the midday meal, because what you'll hear is, and it's not till you actually sit next to them that you realize that they're actually reciting prayers. But they don't sing them because it would be dangerous. They have a few songs, but these songs are the same tunes that you hear in that area of Portugal. Everyone shares these tunes. And now that they're living in an open way, they're listening to music from Israel, they're listening to Shlomo Carlebach, they're listening really to anything that interests them, and especially since the internet's become open.
We have just a minute left. Let's finish with a song, something that of your choice.
I don't know what to sing when you tell me so quickly something of my choice.
I'm throwing at you, I know.
It's kind of hard to say what to...
Of the 10 million songs that you know.
Of the 10 million songs that I know. Do you have a genre that you want?
Let's go back to Ladino.
Okay. Here's a wedding song from the Turkish Bulgaria area in a Turkish rhythm. Hoy que buena que fue la hora que vos alcancí con dos minyanim de gente kidushin vos di ansi ansi mi galan ansi yansi ansi mi almansi. Yo pasé por la vuestra puerta horas de ardid. Passi torni non vos vidi, l'alma tengo allí. Ansi, ansi, mi galan, ansi, 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 mi alma, ansi. Yo le hice unas burriquitas y se las mandé, porque era mi primo hermano, él me enamoré. Ansi, ansi, mi galan, ansi, 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 mi...
Meet Jackie Silver. She's 20 years old, and she's had a remarkable effect on people in the last few months as a result of an experience that you, Jackie, had a few months ago. Mm-hmm. An experience that changed her life, that transformed her. But let's back up and start from the beginning. You were born with a physical challenge.
Yes, I was born with a vascular malformation in my left leg, which means that the veins don't work properly. So as a result, the muscles are weaker, so the leg is weaker and I can't walk far distances. I'm limited in certain things like that.
But it made you, how did that make you feel growing up compared with the other kids?
Sometimes I used to feel like I was different, and I always wanted to be normal, and I wish that I never had anything wrong with me. But then some things that happened to me that we're going to talk about today really changed my way of thinking and made me realize that it's nothing to be embarrassed about, and I am normal.
But for most of your life, you felt different.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And even though you did amazing things with that feeling and with the limitation, you went to Israel, to school.
Yeah, 2 years ago I went to Jerusalem for a year after I graduated high school to study at a seminary.
What was that like?
It was a really great experience. The rabbis and the teachers were amazing, and I learned a lot, and I traveled the country, and it was
in spite of a handicap, you traveled? And you went on your own, left your parents, and were independent. That's a strong urge in you. But you had another setback in grade 11. Tell us about it.
Yeah, at the end of 11th grade, I broke my leg, the leg that has the problem, and because of the circulation in the leg, it took 6 months to heal. So I was in a cast up to my mid-thigh for 6 months, and I had to change high schools. Like, I had to move my bedroom downstairs. Everything changed for me.
And you had to stay home for how long?
I was at home for 3 months, the whole summer, and then I was able to go to school in a wheelchair.
But during that time, you must have been bored and depressed. And tell us what it was like for you, and what did you do during that time that you were forced to stay home?
Yeah, so I read a lot of books. I had friends visit me. I practiced baking, and people actually told me that they were so impressed how upbeat I was, because I didn't get depressed. I wasn't down.
And you actually started a business.
Yeah, I have a baking business, a small thing that I do on the side.
A small thing you do on the side, as well as you're in university.
Yeah, I'm studying kinesiology at York University.
In your second year.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point, you started the baking business. Tell us about the baking. What did you specialize in?
I do a lot of vegan desserts. I can also do gluten-free, whole wheat, egg-free, dairy-free, anything to accommodate allergies.
Are you still doing it?
A little bit. I'm very busy with other things, but a little bit.
Then another setback.
Yeah, so when I came back from Israel, my leg had weakened from not taking such good care of it while I was away.
Because you weren't that active, because you were studying.
Yes, so my leg got a lot weaker and my hip went into a spasm, and suddenly I had to walk with a walker instead of a cane. So that was a very difficult time for me after already having experienced the fracture, which was very difficult for me. So, yeah.
And that, again, confined you to the house?
No, I was able to go out to school, but even though I was still able to do normal activities, it was really hard for me. I felt down all the time. I was jealous that my friends were able to go out and be normal and I couldn't be independent or take care of myself. It was very hard.
And how long did that last?
About 6 months.
How did you help yourself get through that?
Well, I made a gratitude list, and I wrote down all the things that I was able to do instead of what I was not able to do. And
such as what?
Well,
what was on the gratitude list?
That I was thankful I could see, hear, talk, feed myself, go to school, use my arms, my elbows, my fingers, everything that people usually take for granted. They don't realize that it's really important. And
so you focused on what you had, on what you were able to do, instead of what was missing.
Yes, because I realized that I was just focusing on what I couldn't do and what I wished I had and how I wished my leg could be. And I realized that will get you nowhere. That'll just make you down and depressed, and that's not how you're supposed to live your life. You're supposed to be happy. You're supposed to go out and accomplish things, and you're supposed to be thankful for what you have. So I had to change my mindset.
So it sounds like there's a fierce need in you to be independent, to go your own way, to do things that you want to do.
Yeah, I really...
Is that what drives you?
Yeah, for everything I do, I have to tell myself that I can't let my my disabilities or my physical challenges stop me from going out and living my life. I really try to live the best life as possible.
You try to live the best life possible, and you've got strategies for doing that, and we'll find out about this when we come back. Jackie Silver, and an inspiration to everybody, but let's go back. how you started helping others. You started going out of your way to volunteer to help others. How did that begin?
Well, it started just over a year ago when I was in my first year of university, and I was having all these problems with my leg, these setbacks, and my mom told me that in order to get out of my rut, I had to go out and help other people and not think about myself all the time, because that's what I was doing. So then I decided that I was going to start volunteering for a Jewish youth group called MENSCHlife, and they have a weekly program that I would go every week and be a mentor to a high school student. And I started going to some Torah classes and seeing my friends more and just getting out of the house and not thinking about my situation. And that really helped me feel like I could make a difference in the world and help other people and make it seem like, my life is good.
What other volunteer activities do you do?
Well, that's the main thing that I'm...
The NCSY, and there's something about mentoring Judaically with other students?
That's for NCSY. I'm a mentor for a program where they set up university students with high school students, and we teach them about Judaism.
Does Judaism help? Does religion help? Are you ever mad at God? Why me? Why did this happen to me?
Well, religion has played a major part in my life. And
did you ever go through that, though? Being angry and bitter because you're targeted? And why me? And why did God do this to me?
I probably did have those feelings, but not to a large extent, because deep down I know that everything happens for a reason, and I know...
You believe that?
Yes. So I believe that there was a reason why these bad things were happening to me, and I worked hard at keeping my faith during the tough times in my life. It's something that I really had to work at.
Is there something in our teachings specifically that helped you on this journey?
I know something fundamental in Judaism is that you have to have faith in God and just believe that everything that's happening to you is for a reason. If you don't, at the time it might seem really bad, but eventually after you may be able to look back in retrospect and see that all the things that happened to you in your life were meant to happen, and that it really couldn't have happened any other way. And now I'm able to see that.
And believe that all of this has a purpose to it.
Yeah.
And partly it's already happening, although you're only 20. Because although you're a very shy person, I know because you told me, you're doing public speaking.
Yeah. I've started doing public speaking. My first time was just over a year ago, and then
How did you feel before?
Before I started?
Before you started.
Part of me thought that I was crazy. I didn't know why I was doing this, but I had, people encouraging me and pushing me, and then I know that it's something that I'm meant to do.
And so you've been doing it for a year now?
Yes. The first time was a year ago, and this year I did it a lot more. I spoke for Jewish high school students through NCSY, through their Hebrew school, and I went to a public school and spoke to the Jewish students there about overcoming adversity. I told them about my life story and the lessons that I've learned and the messages that I hope to impart to them.
You had a life-changing experience just a few months ago. And he's right there. There he is right there, Rick Hansen. You had a meeting with Rick Hansen.
Yeah, Rick Hansen is a famous Canadian. He, 25 years ago, he wheeled around the world in a wheelchair, and he's a big advocate for people with disabilities, and he's very he's a motivational speaker. So a few months ago, I found out that he was coming to Toronto, and I went to the event that he was going to speak at, and before he began speaking, I went up to him and I started talking to him, and he told me that I could be a difference maker and really inspire other people, and that I have to focus on my abilities and not my disabilities. So that had a major impact on my life and my way of thinking, and I still carry that message with me now.
And look what you're doing. You're skiing?
Yeah, this summer I went cross-country sit skiing for the first time.
And what else?
Well, I swim. I go to the
there
gym.
You are skiing.
Yeah.
On a sled and with poles.
Because it's cross-country.
Had you ever done that before?
No, my first time was this winter. So that was exciting.
Is it because of that meeting with Rick Hansen? Did that open you up to pushing the boundaries, to trying new things?
Partly, yes, because meeting Rick Hansen made me realize that I have thousands of opportunities awaiting for me, and I could do anything that I want to do, that nothing has to stop me. So it encouraged me to become more active in certain things.
More about Jackie's life and what we can learn from her life. Jackie, you write, I believe that every single person in the world has his or her own challenges or personal disability. My disability is very obvious, but many people's disabilities are not.
Yeah, it's true that my disability is very obvious, and many people think that other people, they might, just because they look normal on the outside, they don't have any problems, but that's not true. People are arrogant, people suffer from shyness, people have conditions that you would never know on the outside that are really terrible. Every single person has their own set of challenges, and nobody's perfect, nobody can escape from this. And the test that we have is whether we choose to fixate on our challenges and let them bring us down and get us depressed, or if we choose to focus on our abilities and not our disabilities and go out and accomplish our goals. Because many of these challenges can affect people and really let people prevent themselves from going out and living their life. If somebody is intensely shy and they don't go out and meet people and just stay in their house all day, then they're letting their challenge stop them from living their life.
And you lead a very full life. And you say, I don't let my leg control my life. I go to university, second year kinesiology. I'm independent. I drive a car. I'm part of the Jewish community. I was able to spend a year abroad studying in Israel, on and on and on. And you're doing more all the time.
Yeah, public speaking and
Are you available for people to speak to, classes, groups, organizations, if people want to call you?
Yes, of course.
For sure? Mm-hmm. What's the message? What's the most important message that you want to give people of all ages?
I think the most important message is really to focus on your abilities and not your disabilities, and to know that every single person can live a full life despite their challenges, and not to let their challenges stop them from living the best life possible and being the best people they can be.
So is fear a factor in a lot of what holds people back, held you back? Fear of being a fool, fear of being embarrassed, fear of standing out as different. Did that hold you back?
Yeah, definitely. Many times I've been embarrassed to go out in public or to do things because I thought people would stare at me or think that something's horribly wrong. But then I have to remind myself that that's silly and I can't let that stop me, and really people don't care and people won't judge me.
You use the Bible as an example of people that overcame disabilities. Can you give us an example of what you talk about referring to the Bible?
Yeah, so Moses actually had a stutter, and before he became the great person that he was, God spoke to him at a burning bush and told him that he should lead the Jewish people out of Egypt. And he said, "No way, I have a stutter, I can't do this. What? Go find someone else." But God pushed him and encouraged him, and then he ended up being, one of the most important people of the Torah, who was an amazing leader and role model. So he overcame his own personal disability, and he didn't let it stop him from fulfilling his potential.
Who else do you use as an inspiration? Is there anybody else that you look to that has an example of what we're talking about, who overcame great odds?
Well, there's many motivational speakers. There's a man named Nick Vujicic who was born with no arms and no legs, and I've watched some of his videos on YouTube, and he has really inspired me tremendously. And I also have Jewish role models who I look up to them because they're really fulfilling their potential and going out and helping thousands of people, and that's something that I really admire and respect and want to emulate.
How about your family? What is your relationship with your family? Are they very protective of you? Are they encouraging you? What is happening inside your family home?
So I live with my parents, and I have a younger sister who's in Israel for this year actually, and they've always been extremely supportive of me, and they encourage me to go out and do my public speaking. At times when I say I don't want to do it, they tell me, no, you have to go and do it. They push you? Yeah, they really push me, and they treat me like I'm normal, and they're really great.
So they expect you have a feeling of expectation from them, that they don't overprotect you, they don't coddle you.
No, my parents expect a lot from me.
Too much?
No, not too much.
Enough to motivate you, to get you going?
Mm-hmm.
What are your plans for the future?
Well, I want to finish my kinesiology degree within the next 2 years, and then I want to go into something related to health, or I was thinking maybe going into dietetics, counseling people for how to have more active and healthy lifestyles, and how to help people with obesity, stuff like that. I'm very interested in that.
And to do more public speaking, to keep on going with meeting the public and sharing your life story?
Yes, I definitely intend on trying to find speaking gigs and doing my public speaking.
Well, I wish you luck. You've
Thank
inspired me. And we'll be in touch. We'll find out how your life is developing. And in a few months, I'll speak with you again, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Doris Epstein, don't forget to be a mensch.